Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Trading Triangle. Once again, it's me and Kay on this lovely Sunday, the 18th of May. How are you doing, Kay?
Happy Sunday. I'm doing great, Sean. Hope you're doing well as well.
Yeah, we had obviously Mother Sunday last Sunday, so nothing going on in the US today, is there?
No, nothing is going on in the US. It's
No.
the weather is getting beautiful. It's getting
Oh.
warm. There's a little bit of it's cloudy, might rain. It's beautiful weather. It's warm. People are outside. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful here as well, actually. It's been like this for about 2 months, which is unheard of for the UK. I wish I could show you, but you can see the kind of rays of sun coming through the window
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
it's gorgeous at the moment, it really is. And obviously, still plenty to come, hopefully, with summer just around the corner. Obviously, we are just a couple of guys on the internet looking at charts, giving our perspectives. It's what we love to do. So it's not financial advice. So anything that you kind of have on board, just take it with a pinch of salt and just take it for entertainment value purposes only. Obviously, massive thank you to Wolf as well for letting us use the platform. We couldn't do it without you. Yeah, we really, really appreciate it. And of course, lastly, if you've got any tickers you want reviewed, stick them in the comments down below, whether it be on YouTube or on X. We'd be happy to go through them. Of course, the general kind of role of the show, is we go through the kind of what happened last week. So we go through some earnings, and we go through a couple of charts, and then a chart each of our own, which is the picks of the week. And then we jump into the audience requests. It's normally about 20 minutes or so before we get to those. We normally get quite a few, so get them in early so we can touch on them as soon as possible. So I'll leave that there for a couple of seconds, and we'll jump into the slideshow, shall we, Kay?
Yep. Absolutely. Let's do this.
Awesome. So yeah, tomorrow is May 19th already. Unbelievable how fast the year is going. We've got market overview for last week. And let me just get rid of that banner there on the screen. So market overview of last week, obviously very green. I felt like it in my portfolio. There's one red name that kind of really pops out there, and obviously that's United Healthcare. So maybe we'll have a few words on that a bit later on. But generally, let's just turn to the good side. So we've got Tesla down here, which is behind you. So the viewers won't quite see it, but up 20% this week. Amazon, of course, 6%. Apple, Meta, also up 6%. Google returning nicely this week of 7.8%, with the previous week being down quite considerably. And the biggest move of the week, really, in terms of kind of market cap name, is kind of Nvidia. So, yeah, plenty to talk to. Any of you kind of names that you kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think Google 7% as well, Meta 6% as well. I think Netflix made another all-time high last week.
Oh, wow.
I think it was just a very good week in terms of, and if you were an option seller, you were probably having a lot of fun, because I did, at least.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the long-term portfolio, it's nice to see it kind of accelerate back up. And we'll jump into the SPY and QQQ charts in a minute to kind of see it represented. There's a few more names worth mentioning here. Obviously, JP Morgan up 5%, which is pretty good for a bank. Palantir, again, up a whopping 8%, breaking that $125 mark as well. So perhaps that's marching on even further, which is incredible. And AMD finally get a bit of love, 14%. The advanced money destroyer is no more. Maybe we can get that chart up a bit again this week. So have a look at that, see where it's going. Because there's a lot of gaps that are kind of being filled and being created. So perhaps we can dig into that. So if you can add that to the list just on my behalf, okay, that'd be ideal.
Yep, I did.
Sweet. Cool. And with that, obviously, market overview, nice and green. We'll turn it over to the Fear and Greed Index. Also very green, sitting at 71. I'll let you talk around this slide. Okay.
Absolutely. So 69, last week we were 71. So we are inching towards the extreme greed put to call. And this is basically is how generally the market was before we had that, the Liberation Day announcement. About 0.6 to 0.7 is generally the put to call ratio in general, we notice. VIX has finally dropped below 20. So this is again getting into territory where, I think maybe it's when it's around 16, 15, you could look to buy long-term calls on VIX for some kind of volatility. But that's again a trade. Right now, I don't think we are there yet, but something that I always look to hedge myself for the long term. SPY, we were up 2.5%. QQQ, again, 3.5%. Next key events, I think we have Fed speakers talking all week, all the different Fed speakers, and then the jobless numbers are going to come out on 5/22. In addition, which I did not add here, most people, they might have seen the news that Walmart does plan to absorb some of the tariff costs, but they will pass some costs to the consumers. And then we saw the Trump's response on the Truth Social. So more drama on the tariff side might continue. So apart from that, I think that's pretty much it. Sums it up on how we are doing so far.
Yeah, I did look at those Fed speakers. There's loads of them coming up this week. They don't move the market too much, but it's always worth kind of noting what they say around the kind of markets, because they kind of sometimes all come together. And you get the one that kind of goes off to the side and says something really, really rash, and the market reacts in such ways. A few comments here coming in. We've got Riot, any recommendations? We'll add this to the list and we'll get to that a bit later on. We've got good morning, obviously, from Justin. Good to see you again, Justin. Nice to see you once again. Another week ahead. We've got what's this? I like know about Amazon. Right, cool. Maybe we put that on the list. Who knows?
Yeah, and then we have Upstart and Mara request from Sal.
Awesome. So keep them coming, and we'll jump on to the next slide, which is the upcoming earnings. We have got a few big names this week. I think there's one that you're particularly looking at. That's a stock that you're covering today, which is Snowflake, after the close on Wednesday. I actually hold a bit of position in kind of defense type things. I've got Palo Alto there on Tuesday after the market close. I'm interested to see what happens there. It's part of an ETF. I don't actually hold the stock. But yeah, you've got Xpeng as well down before open on Wednesday, which would be nice to see how the kind of Chinese autos are getting on, related to NIO and Li Auto, etc. So it'd be quite interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, any other names that are kind of pointing out to you kind of towards the end of the season now?
Pretty much covered it. Maybe Zoom, I'll take a look at it because I have a long-term position. I do want to exit out of it, but hasn't moved at all. So apart from that, I would say Zim. That used to be a dividend stock, so we'll see how that is playing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Snowflake, Home Depot. Home Depot would be the other one.
Because Target here as well.
Yeah, because I think Home Depot Target is going to give you a little bit more. So from a Home Depot standpoint, we'll get to see the consumer sentiments, and interesting for Target would be on how the boycott. So we had this massive boycott happen for Target as a company since they removed the DEI. So we want to see what the impact is, and is it just on Twitter and TikTok, or is it really happening at Target? We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, those pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, so coming to the end of the season now, aren't we, really? Obviously, there's quite a few big names coming out. We've got NVIDIA, of course. And then I think I've got NIO as well on my behalf. It's kind of coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's still a few names kind of popping around, but that is kind of the bulk done, which is interesting. Because it wasn't that bad, actually. It didn't feel that bad, the earnings season. That's probably reflected in the charts, which we'll look at now. You can see this is the spine chart. It's just incredible what's happened in the last 3 to 4 weeks, to be honest. Obviously, well, actually, if you really think about it, the last 3 months has been really interesting since Donald Trump basically came in, to be honest with you. So obviously, a big dip down, all down to kind of 500, 490, etc. It actually goes below that, but I wanted the chart to look, somewhat nice. But we gapped up here as well, kind of mid to late April, and again, obviously, just recently, last week, basically, in May. So things are going very, very well, perhaps too well, we're not too sure. But one thing I wanted to note out was basically we're only 3% off of all-time highs, Kay. It's incredible. Just like that. Just like that.
Exactly. And in that process, we have created multiple gap ups, right? Multiple gaps throughout the setting. I know I was watching a couple analysts, and they were looking to short SPY around the 570, 576. That was the previous resistance. I don't know if they short it or not, but I'm glad I did not take that. Otherwise, those shorts would be burned. But we'll see again, once you start coming to that close to the all-time highs of 3% less, right? That will be a big resistance. And the question is, so we also got the Moody's downgrade. Now, depending upon who you follow, a lot of FinTwit influencers are like, it's a nothing burger. We don't know. We'll see how that plays out for the next week onwards. But has the economy done very well? I don't know, and the tariff is still there. So take it as a day at a time. When it's green, take full advantage. When it's red, take full advantage. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and that's what being a trader is all about, isn't it? Taking the opportunities when you find them, but also mitigating your risk as well if you see an opportunity to take it. But yeah, just looking at the chart as well, you've got all the moving averages kind of coming up below as well. So maybe we do get a bit of a retracement. I think it's healthy if we get it now. And maybe if we come back down to that kind of 376 levels you mentioned as previous resistance, could be an interesting spot for adding for the long term going forward. But for now, I'm just holding my positions. If we get more upside, then great. If we go down, then I might potentially add into some separate names, but maybe not the actual market, just because of the way it's moved at the moment. But of course, not financial advice is kind of what I'm thinking of at the moment. With that, we move on to the QQQ, looking very, very similar. We've got more aggressive moving averages kind of coming through, the 20s kind of coming up even more directly. Lots of volume around this level, so maybe we are looking to kind of push above that. But like you mentioned, the Moody's downgrade on Friday sent the SPY QQQ down 1% after hours. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight when the futures come out. I think we actually got a comment here from Trinia, NQ futures as a suggestion, but that we can't really look at that because it's just basically the market before it opens. But maybe we will. Maybe we'll look at that. But yeah, plenty of interesting things kind of going on for the market this week for sure. Anything you want to add for the Qs?
No, I think it's pretty much the same, tracking the same as SPY. So at this point in time, I think the next big catalyst for QQQ would be the NVIDIA earning, which I believe will be the following week. I think everybody's
coming up soon.
Everybody's going to watch that very closely because that's the last of the Max 7.
Yeah, so I think we'll leave it there for SPY QQQ. Obviously, for QQQ, we are only 3.69% away from all-time highs. And we've seen those kind of moves in single days before. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's definitely possible. Of course, we do get a bit of excitement. But likewise, of course, we can just fill this gap nice and easy as well. So yeah, just trade safe when you're out there on the markets. We like to try and trade safe as possible, of course. With that, we'll move on to the next slide. If I press the right button, here we go. It's my pick of the week. I think last week, I can't remember. I didn't actually look at the results from last week, Kay.
What did we choose last week? I totally forgot.
I think I picked SoFi last week. I think it was pretty flat last week.
Hold on, let me see. For 5 days, you were 0.86 up. What did I pick last week?
Mara.
I think probably I beat you this week. No, you won again. I was down 0.88.
Oh, that was a really close one again. We're doing pretty well. So that must be 9-0 or something like that. That's great.
Yeah, something like that, exactly.
I need to create a slide. This is too good for me. I need to create a slide that says that I'm winning. Awesome. We'll move on to my pick of the week this week, which is actually Grab Holdings, which is the kind of Southeast Asian Uber, shall we say. And I'm just looking at this more of a technical level because we've got some confluence on the screen here, as you can see. I've made some notes there, but I'll just talk through them. Previous support resistance with that yellow line that's kind of flowing through the screen there. It's not the best line, but you can kind of see it's more of a zone, maybe between 480 and 490. So just a kind of interesting kind of area of price action, of course. We've got the volume profile on the right side, so plenty of volume around this side peaking up, which could also act as support as well. And you've got the 20-moving average kind of flowing up, which is the blue line. So if we do get a punch down, that's basically what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a bit of a punch down to kind of 485, 490, thereabouts. And then perhaps starting a smaller position and then maybe adding to it as it moves higher, if it moves higher, of course. And one word of note, actually, while we're here, is obviously you've got the 50-moving average, which is the white line flowing through the screen here, also slowly edging up. So that could actually act as a bit of support, in weeks to come. So plenty of things looking good for Grab. I think the business is growing quite nicely. They are spending lots of money and the cash flow is diminishing a little bit, but they are making lots of money now, improving the revenue as well. So it's interesting to see where that company will be going. I think the net income positive last time I checked as well. So that's always a good sign as well. So plenty of good things going on with the actual company itself. So yeah, that's my pick of the week. Any thoughts for Grab?
No, well, I do have like a call option for a leap call option, a few contracts for Grab. So, I wish you go up so I can profit.
What's the expiration on those, if you don't mind me asking?
27.
Okay. So quite a long
so
time.
those are leap ones. Let me see. I think, 115.27. So $7.5 call, $7.5 call. So
sweet. Awesome. Let's see how that goes. Obviously, it'd be a good start if it goes up now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if I can profit, I'll exit the position if it doubles from here. But that's how sometimes you just have to take some chances on long term. It's only a very small position, so there's 3 contracts, nothing too crazy.
No, awesome. Well, that's my pick of the week then. That's Grab, and we'll move on to the slide here. Obviously, you can catch me on X at SHAUN_trades_, as you can see on the screen as well. YouTube, posting videos kind of every couple of weeks. I've been a bit quiet there recently, so I've been preparing for a friend's wedding. So looking forward to that. It'll be good fun. Obviously, you've got TTR as well, which is my trading community, and I've got a new trade that's going live tonight, which I'm really excited about. So go ahead and check that out. Check out the landing page, see if it's for you. If it's not for you, then that's okay. If it is for you, then I'll see you on the other side. And with that, obviously, we hand over to KAYE's chart of the week, or pick of the week, should we say, and that's Snowflake. Hand over to you, Kay.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, so the pick of the week is Snowflake, and the reason is because it's reporting earnings. As you can see, Snowflake created. I mean, this is a weekly chart, but I posted a weekly chart. But basically, on the daily chart, the yellow bar that you see, that's basically a gap down, and we still haven't filled that gap since I would say 2024 time. I think August or September, whenever they reported earnings. Whenever we had that gap down, we never filled that gap back up. Now, couple things to note before I go into the trade idea on what are the things we need to watch on the earnings. So there are three big points. One is there is decelerating the revenue for Snowflake. We have the net revenue retention, which is also down, and we have the heavy stock based compensation. So those are the three big points that we need to watch on the earnings and how they are maneuvering. The good news is that there are from an analyst standpoint, there are more number of analysts that are predicting the stock is going to move higher, is going to get a much better EPS compared to the compared to the other side of the analyst, right? So how would we play this? Generally, the estimated move is about 12%, so that you could about that's $22 or so. So it could from this price, it could go up to 205 or could go down to 166. The ideal way to play, because I don't know how it's going to move, and earnings are always binary, so just buying a call option or buying a put option doesn't make sense. So you can either use a straddle or a strangle. um, what I'm going to do, I don't know yet. I want to watch it until like maybe Wednesday or so to come up with the right option. But straddle or strangle is the way that I will proceed with this particular earnings play, and this is the one that I will actually play, unlike some of the previous earnings. So I will keep it neutral as long as it moves. So the difference between straggle, strangle, or iron condor is, then in iron condor you want the stock to not move on either direction. You want to stay within a range. And in our case of straddle or strangle, we want the stock to move. And the chances are that we may see a gap fill finally happening for 2025 for the one that we have. So we could see that gap. So that's why what the strike prices would be, that I will determine it on Wednesday. So that's the stock idea that I think I am looking to play for the earnings.
Awesome. Yeah, I was interested to see that it's actually a weekly chart. You don't bring up weekly charts that often on these live streams, do
I think it was a mistake when I put it here, but I wanted to show you a daily chart. But when I saw it's a weekly, I was like, why the gap fill doesn't show that?
So well, you've kind of showed it with the bar there anyway, so it's not too bad. And the one thing I see on here is obviously you've got the high around here. Let's say just 240 for...
That's 234, right? Yeah, that's 234, yeah.
So let's just say 240 for now. So obviously if you drew a line from this point and dragged it down to where obviously this high is and dragged it across that, we're kind of looking at breaking out of that in terms of trendline resistance. I'd be interested to see what that looks like. I'm actually going to write that down in a minute. See, obviously, I know the earnings are coming out Thursday, but if we do make a break to the upside, potentially, I would look for maybe a little bit of a pullback post earnings, maybe a kind of bull flag, something like that. And then obviously expect it to make fully go a lot higher, maybe towards that kind of 330, 350 in future price action, of course. So yeah, just breaking that kind of trend line basically would be one thing that I look at. Downside action, I'm not too interested in it. If it does break 108, I'd be looking to short it. But at the moment, the market, the way it is, it's tricky to kind of navigate shorting. I don't really like shorting as it is, but sometimes it's necessary.
But if you see, right, if it goes down, which is about 12% move, will be about $22 from here. So it will still take you down to 160, 165, 166, which is where the point of control is. Most of the volume sits there. Now, if it goes up, you're going to 205, which is probably going to fill or at least almost fill that gap. So that's exactly the range we are planning to play for the straddle or strangle.
Awesome. I think looking at that one, I'm just writing that one down now. Snow trend line just kind of piques my interest for sure. I'm not too good with the options, of course, but maybe one day I'll learn them.
No, absolutely. And the whole point is that you in this strategy, you want the stock to move. You don't want the stock to not move. So the goal is, if we can get so three things I talked about that we want to watch in the earnings. And then, of course, how's the sales cycle? Because at the end of the day, from a software, in any SaaS company, the sales cycle matters. So if their sales cycle is getting shorter, we might be getting deals faster for them. And that helps with the revenue, eventually helps with the profit, and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Right. Where can we find you then, Kay?
Well, you can find me first. I'll talk about Substack because Substack has become my main writing source. So I'm pretty much putting trade ideas every single week over there. It is, of course, paid. So you will have, if you want access right away, you will have to. You can pay it for. You can try it out for a month, and if not, then it will be available after a week or so. So this week I'll actually put two trade ideas. One, of course, I'll talk about the Snowflake, which trade I'm taking in, and second, I will also touch upon the UNH and the healthcare sector because there's a asymmetrical bet looking to happen in the healthcare sector, not specifically on UNH because the general healthcare sector is down. So more to on that. So this week I'll have two articles on that side. YouTube, I haven't really posted much on YouTube, but you can find me there. We are almost at the end of the first quarter. First half is coming to an end, so I'll do an assessment of the top 5 stocks that we did, which I predicted for in last year. So I'll do a review on where we stand on that, and then of course you can follow me on Twitter X for daily funny content, I guess.
I'm looking forward to that kind of half-year review of your stocks. I know you picked some interesting stocks there.
Some stocks did very well, some stocks did very bad, right? So we'll cover that as well. It'll take me about a week or two to build that video.
Of course, and there could be some potential opportunities in there for viewers if they do their own research, of course, and get the ideas from KAYE's video that will come out in probably 3 or 4 weeks' time after the half year. So let's get rid of that one then for now. We'll jump into the charts in just a second. But what I will do is just stick this on the screen. So make sure you put your ticker requests in the comments. We've had quite a few come in already, but keep them coming. And yeah, let me just get the charts ready, and we can start getting into them. Right, here we go. Get rid of that. I've actually already got Bitcoin up on the screen, so.
Yeah, so then we can start with we have 2 requests for Bitcoin related stocks, Riot and Mara. You can probably go with those first.
Cool. Right, I might leave that on the screen for a couple of minutes to take us through. So Riot, let's have a look. I've not looked at Riot for quite some time actually. You can see my last drawing here of the info line there. Right. Do you cover Riot much, if at all?
No, I mostly stick with Mara. I'm not allergic to Riot or anything. I just stick with one because it's easy for me to understand the price action.
Yeah, do you reckon there's more volume in Mara as well, or doesn't?
Yeah, it's more volume. It's from selling option or even buying option. You get a lot more options on no pun intended on Mara, but nothing against Riot per se.
No, so I think with similar charts actually. So you've got Riot just below the 200 move average, and Mara as well. And I posted this yesterday on my X profile. How Mara would be good to kind of get through the 200 move average, and I kind of feel the same here for Riot as well. So if it can get above the 200 move average, maybe use it as support and push it up higher. I mean, it probably will tomorrow, given the Bitcoin price currently. It's about 105, 106 almost. Which is pretty good price action for Bitcoin over the weekend, and that will just naturally pick up all of the Bitcoin affiliated stocks, such as another one that's kind of popped on the screen there by Tesla there, CIFR, which is Cypher, I believe. So we move on to Mara,
yeah.
This one is actually really interesting for me, and that's why I brought it up yesterday on the X profile. I know you want it for different reasons, but you don't mind which way it goes. But of course, you want it to. I would like it to go up, of course. If you can break this 200 move average plus the volume profile here, a nice 30% move would undertake quite well, I think. What are your thoughts on Mara?
No, absolutely. So the trade that I posted last week on my Substack still holds true because we have a 1 month lead time on this one. So if we are looking for a move to the upside, we'll make money. If we make a move to the downside base of rejection, we'll make money. We just don't want the stock to stall in between because that's when that's where we lose money.
Yeah. So whereas for me personally, if I'm holding shares, I don't lose any money in terms of phase decay and stuff. So
exactly, yeah.
But also don't make as much money as you if it was to move in that direction. But yeah, plenty of things to look forward to for Mara this week ahead, especially with the price action from Bitcoin over the weekend. What's next, okay?
Do you want to just look at CIFR since it's in the same realm of Bitcoin, and you can jump to the other ones?
You got lucky there, Tesla. This one, little bit different price action. Still, again, just below the 200 moving average, but the actual chart itself looks a bit more dramatic compared to Mara and Riot, of course. But don't hate it. Big move on Friday, 21%. Really big move. It could actually be even further big moves just because you've got this big volume profile here on the right side. We can get it back above that, which it probably will, like I mentioned, overnight. Whether it holds that or not is a very different question, but holding that would be very, very important. So you've got 200 moving average there and the volume profile to make another move higher would be great. Maybe somewhere towards $6, which would be representative of about 43%. So nothing
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I think Bitcoin names in general might move together over this course of the week if Bitcoin continues, because obviously if you break all-time highs of Bitcoin, which is about 111, I think, 111K, is that right? 110K, 111K?
105 right now it is, right? So,
Yeah, but all-time highs, I think, is about 111-ish from the top of my head. I could just check it on here. I've got the chart up on the screen.
yeah, let's do that. So,
So all-time highs we've got here are 109, so I wasn't far off.
almost there. Almost there. Crazy. Yeah, so I think it will lift all the ships if Bitcoin really starts to go up. It will probably pull all these other mining stocks as well. Okay, all right. Let's move on to Upstart. That was the request with Riot.
Upstart, here we go. I don't really trade Upstart that often, but you can see I've got a purple line here, which I'm guessing is a trend line that I've drawn a little while ago. So I've switched to the weekly chart there. It's a little bit no man's land. Obviously, lots of resistance here on the weekly chart. Perhaps maybe it might come back down to kind of 35-ish before making a move higher. Does it have earnings this week?
Let
No,
me
it's
check.
done the earnings a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the earnings are done. The next earnings are 8.5, which is
A long way away.
yeah.
But yeah, not looking good on the weekly chart. I mean, we do have previous resistance around these sorts of. Oh, whoops, press the wrong button.
This stock has a 24.59% short interest.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
potential short squeeze, especially in this market as well. People getting a little bit more excited around that kind of extreme greed area.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if next week we are sitting in extreme greed. I wouldn't be surprised in this time, and we'll be maybe next week will be all time high.
I agree. So we've got previous resistance here of December 23, and then again September of last year. So there is a bit of resistance here. We had 2 weeks ago, we had a bit of price action bouncing off of that to the upside. Let's dive into the daily chart, get a bit more of a detail. Yeah, I mean, we may see it drop down again to 45 briefly before a push higher, but it's not one I'm looking at. It's not one I'm going to trade just because I'm not comfortable with that name ideally, and it's just a bit too volatile for me, I think.
I think if you notice the trend, right, and because we do this every single week, we kind of understand the request that comes in. So once the market is in extreme fear, you notice that the requests are generally for much bigger names, right? People are looking for much more stable names. And when you start getting requests for maybe penny stocks, you know that we are in a different side of the market. Nothing wrong, but it's just how the trend is. People tend to take more risks in a greener market than the red market, which makes sense.
So if you take the moving averages off, this now looks bullish because you've got support here on the left side. And obviously support most recently, even with the volatility in the markets, it broke out of this trend line, which could arguably say it's not the most accurate trend line, but it is a trend line. It broke out of there and come back down and retesting it, but we're retesting almost three different levels and the volume profile. So that could potentially be very, very bullish confluence for Upstart, even at these levels at 48, perhaps maybe 47. But that's just my read on the chart. I mean, you could also say it's a bit of an inverse head and shoulders, which is horribly drawn, but there you go. I slipped on the mouse. That's what it was. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely room for upside there for Upstart. Yeah, no, thank you for Sal B for bringing that one up. What's next, okay?
Amazon,
here we go. Again, I brought this one up on my X profile yesterday, and I kind of like it to come back down to 200. What are your thoughts on Amazon?
Well, it definitely created a lot of gaps. So, Not that I will trade at this level. I will wait for it to pull back at least to fill that gap if I want to add.
There's a gap to the upside as well, 236.
Yeah, that is the gap to the upside, right? It jumped from all the way 193 to what 208. So that's the gap right there, and
Yeah,
it's
so
starting to fill that gap slowly. So the next support probably will come around the 200 level, right? The psychological level.
exactly, yes. I think anything between, let's say, 195 to 200 might be an area of interest for lots of investors and traders,
Yeah.
for sure. But it's a bigger name. There's lots of excitement around it. They're a cash flow machine. Yes, they get impacted a little bit by tariffs, or a lot by tariffs. That seems to have quieted them down, at least for now.
And the tariff story will continue, right? So it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like, it will end anytime soon. So you will have to just get used to trading in this environment.
Yeah, if you're not used to it by now, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the point of control for Amazon, ideally you should have been adding or looking at 185, right? That's where the majority of the volume is. And then we did see an upside from there. But I think at this point in time, I would want it to pull back, at least fill that gap if I want to trade further up.
Yeah, you've got all the mirror averages around that kind of gap as well. So there's plenty of support down below. It's just where it wants to kind of, potentially bounce.
Okay.
Yeah,
Next is EVGO.
haven't seen this one for a while.
I forgot what it does.
It's a charging company, I think.
Oh, they're still in business?
Yeah, it looks like it for now, at least. I know ChargePoint is struggling a little bit as well, but we do have a little bit of recent price action from EVGO. I mean, you've got the last two earnings, which you can kind of see down the bottom there. The red shield's obviously not been too good, but it's back above the 200 moving average. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see in a bit more detail. This is the daily chart. Back above the 200 moving average, seems to be holding it quite nicely. You would expect if it was to break that down lower, it would break down quite aggressively, perhaps down to the sort of area of maybe $3. But if we are going to get a move higher, then, I don't know, where do you choose your resistance? Perhaps maybe this level here, the previous trend line, or you've got the gap fill, the green line there. Any thoughts on EVGO? Something you might want to have a look at?
Not from the trading standpoint, but just from an investing standpoint is, so what is the thesis behind this particular company, right? I mean, if let's say the new government wants to remove the charging credit, or if they are not as focused on the green revolution or green energy, then how do these companies actually compete? Because apparently I think Tesla will continue to add more to their charging network. They have already opened the charging network to all the other manufacturers, right? They keep adding new manufacturers. So how do these other companies actually compete? I don't know the answer. I'm just putting it out there to just food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, you think if Tesla's working from a logical point of view on basically taking over the whole of the US as a large infrastructure, and I'm going to bring up NIO here, but NIO is trying to do the same thing with battery swapping stations in China. But yeah, if you take the monopoly, then how is there space for EVGO and ChargePoint and Blink? How is there space for any of them?
Yeah, I mean,
How they survive even?
And we also see if you actually do a Google review of you go read the reviews of the people who actually go to these ChargePoint or these other networks, they often complain that it doesn't work half the times, right? Half of these networks don't work properly, but you don't see the same complaints on Tesla side. Like Tesla networks are pretty reliable, they're more available, and more other companies are. So you don't need to buy a Tesla, you can buy a GM or a Ford or a Rivian or anybody else and still charge at Tesla, right? So Tesla, not just a car company, is getting into this whole infrastructure side of the charging network, right? So
yeah, I mean, if you're into kind of infrastructure, if you're watching this, if you're in the kind of electric vehicle infrastructure, there's definitely money to be made if you think that ChargePoint or Blink or EVGO can really make an impact into the kind of Tesla monopoly of charging. If you can, then obviously you can make some pretty good gains, but they're going to have to basically offer more for less, if that makes sense. And it's very tricky if you're going up against a company that's producing positive net cash flow and can afford to kind of lose that kind of money and building their revenue, etc. But yeah, no, it's an interesting one. It's not not an area I'm interested in too much because.
No, I think ChargePoint.
Why?
I think back in the day, ChargePoint. I mean, and with full transparency, like I really thought that when ChargePoint a couple of years back, that they would probably be doing a much better job. But 4 years down the lane, I live in New Jersey. I still don't see that many ChargePoint. I mean, there are few here and there, but it's not really. The infrastructure has not grown substantially to really see that how these companies. I mean, it's already 2025. I remember in 2020, Kathy Woods was like, in 2030 we will see some kind of a robotic world. I remember one of our conversations I went to. But it's 50% of the time is already gone, and we don't even have charging stations like sprawling across New Jersey. And New Jersey has 10 million people. It might be a small state, but from a population standpoint, it's bigger than many other states in the United States. So
yeah, of course. And then you've got the fact that they're burning through cash as well and consistently diluting the shareholders. So if you're diluting the shareholders, they're going to get frustrated. They're going to sell out the stock, and it's just not going to be pretty for the stock overall. And then the company gets hit. Anyway, let's move on from this.
Next is MBOT, MBOT. It's called Microbot Medical Inc.
So do you reckon this is something similar to TEM?
Let's see what it does. I don't know what it does.
Because you've got TEM, which is Nancy Pelosi kind of healthcare AI stock.
It's a clinical stage. It's a medical device company, engages in research, design, development of robotic. I don't know what does that mean even. Surgery device targeting minimally invasive surgery. It's based in Israel. So it's an Israeli-based company. Okay. Yeah, I don't trade penny stocks, and short interest is 18% on this one. So it's up like 177% in 1 year, 139% year to date. There's a $1 stock. Now it's what, 250, 268.
It's an interesting chart though, because however you look at it, you've got, if you didn't draw the trend line from up here, you can draw it from down here from all these recent, well, not recent, but these highs made in January across all the top. Obviously, there's plenty of touches on this trend line, but if you were also going to do the other way around and draw it from the peak of that down to the other peaks that we've got, you've almost got a retest on both different sections, regardless of which one you choose. So this could potentially move in the right direction pretty fast. I mean, you keep a tight stop loss. Yes, it's going to be quite big. So let's just do that hypothetically while we're here. We've got a bit of time. So if you put the stop loss down below, you're losing 14% if you were to buy shares. But obviously, if you break this recent high, which is 25% as it is, but if you break that to the upside, managing the trade will be tricky. But there's lots of gains to be made potentially with this name. And I do like the setup as well because you've got higher lows, consistent higher lows coming here. So you set the low here back in March, slightly higher in April, slightly higher in the end of April, and obviously slightly higher recently in May, of course. So it's a good looking chart. I know it's a penny stock and I know it's high risk, but if you're willing to kind of take that risk, obviously do it carefully, do it with money you can afford to lose, etc. I'm not saying I'll jump in this anytime soon, but I don't hate the chart. Don't hate the chart at all.
Okay. So next up is NVIDIA.
So I'm just writing that one down. NVIDIA, right, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Big one. This one has moved, and this one really frustrated me, really. Do you want me to tell the story of why? So actually, I liked the fact I'll get rid of the moving averages because they're a bit messy. I like the fact it broke through the trend line, okay? And then it came up, it came back down and retested the previous resistance of this level, which I really liked. And I even wrote retest line on it. I think it was on this stream, actually. And it came back down and retested it, but not quite. It retested it 20 cents out. So I had a limit order set for 110.50 and it bounced at 110.75. and look at it now. Unbelievable. I mean, that's just trading, isn't it? But you think, oh, sure, I might just put it in a bit higher. But yeah, tell me that now. Great. Cheers.
No, and if it would have gone down, you would have bought it at 110, whatever the your limit order would have executed. Yeah, so
110.50. 0.50. So but yeah, generally it's going very, very well.
So what's the play? You're doing anything now, or you're just gonna wait and watch on this one?
I mean, I've still got a big position in SMH, so it's a big part of that. So I'm just letting that ride to see what happens.
Yeah,
It's a long-term position, SMH, of course, because obviously semiconductors are kind of
yeah.
the future.
I I think for folks who are probably looking at Nvidia, if you didn't get a chance to add before, I'm sure you don't want to add at 135, right? Uh, right, 87 was pretty low. I did add a lot more at 104, 105 level. But I think the next resistance that we will probably see around the 148, and then 153 was the all-time high for the stock.
So this sort of area up here, then.
Yeah. So let's see if also it depends on what news comes out, right, around the semiconductor. But I think in semiconductors in general are finally getting that screen time, which they haven't had from like a couple quarters now, actually 3-4 quarters now. Like AMD was down for the entirety of last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
While we're on here, actually, if you're watching and you're putting some tickers in the comments, which we really, really appreciate. Obviously, we'll get to them when we get to them. But if you want to repost this stream, that would be amazing as well. Whether you're on YouTube or X, to share it with other people, get it out there, because we do try our best and give the best kind of perspectives and kind of thoughts around the different stocks and tickers that you bring up. And it gives us ideas as well. So the more people that come in, the more ideas that you get as well, not just us. So yeah, do go ahead and share the stream. We really appreciate it. What's next up then, Kay?
Next is Microsoft, another big one.
Here we go. I think this is one of Justin's.
Yeah, just both Nvidia and Microsoft.
Nvidia and Microsoft, yeah.
Look at that. I think this has more. So again, I don't know how true this theory is, but I'll share it. So watching all these CNBC and a lot more influencers across, one of the theory that is going on is that when the stock market was in the fear and extreme fear, you had retail piling up in a lot of these names. And then what happened was, as the stock market started recovering, you found these other institutional investors sitting on the sidelines because they exited the position. And now they are basically FOMOing into a lot of these stocks. And that's why you see this massive run up. Well, we'll get to see how things play out. But, I'm pretty sure if I'm back to the all-time highs, I'm not adding to my positions. I'm just sitting and waiting. I'll continue with my DCA into index funds, but there's really nothing I'm going to do at all-time highs. But hey, Microsoft is already coming back to the 464 level, like, almost there, 456.
And I think it's difficult for us to kind of come back and say, oh yeah, buy at these levels. And we're not going to do that because that's not what we do. But it's also even more difficult to even think about that because of the move it's made in the last 3 to 4 weeks. It's just psychologically, it messes with your head as a human being. It's not just us, it's all traders, all humans. If you see price action like this, you think, oh, actually, why would you buy here after all this price action? And now it could go up another 10, 20%. But that's, again, like you said, dollar cost averaging into ETFs and, big funds.
So if you think about it, like before the whole drop happened, we always kept saying if it keeps making all-time highs after all-time highs, you don't dump your entire cash, you slowly nibble, right? Because you don't know what will happen. Concept applies, same concept applies now as well, right? Now you're almost coming closer to all-time highs. Like, so Microsoft created such a big gap, right? You have such a massive gap up that if it actually goes and fills that gap, you'll be down 13% almost from the current point if you add now.
And it looks like that's what Justin's looking to do.
Yeah.
Well, not that specific move, but he's looking to short it, which is tricky in this market, Justin. So be careful if you're doing that. But you have reason to do it, I guess.
Justin, what I would say, if you want to short, then, of course, you're still bullish. I would say, do a cash secured put rather than, buying a put. That way, at least you can enter at 395. Right? So you're not shorting, but you want it to go down to 395, but in the meantime, you can still continue to earn premium. But again, you'll have to have a 39,500 collateral.
Awesome. Right, what's next? Okay.
Next is SMCI, another good one.
Yeah, this is your stock. I'll leave this one to you because
you've
been covering it recently, haven't you?
I'm loving SMCI. We had been building massive positions around the 30 level. I was hoping it can break down to around the mid 20s to add more, but it did not. So we do see some resistance coming around the 50 mark, right? That was the previous resistance. So I still expect that we'll see some resistance. We are already almost at the 70 on the RSI, but stocks like these, they can stay in the oversold territory for a much longer time, like maybe 2 weeks or so. So we could continue to see a push up. So the next target would be breaking the $50 mark, and then we will have the next resistance around the $63. So these are different levels that you want to see on from where we get a rejection. Uh, all the moving averages, we do have the 200 coming up. Sorry, the 300 coming up around the 55.66. So I started using actually 300-day moving average as well, especially when we had such a big drop to see which stocks to buy at 300. Like a lot of stocks below the 300-day moving average, it was like almost steal. You had to buy those stocks. But the 300 is going to come up. But I would first target the 50.43 as my next resistance level.
See, I don't use the 300. Maybe I should have a look at it. I mean, it's not that I don't use it, it's because I've never have used it, but maybe it's something you can add to the arsenal, of course.
Yeah.
Not me personally, but all the viewers as well.
Exactly. And it's especially when you see those massive drops, like, 10% down, and there's a lot of fear in the market. That's when I actually switch from the 200 to 300 to see which stocks are available at 300 and below, because those were some very amazing deals you could have gotten if you were looking at 300-day SMA.
You might be looking at that around kind of UNH as well, no?
I will share this with the UNH. It's the same prop. So whenever a company is involved in some kind of a investigation, fraud, like SMCI was, right? You have to. Okay, it can pay off. Of course, you buy it, and then the stock went up 15%. And you're like, oh, I made 15%. The question is, did you exit your position at 15%? Because see, I see a lot of influencers. They keep talking about, oh, I wish I bought this and I'm up 15%. But did you sell it off? Because if you did not sell it, you did not get the money. It's on paper. It doesn't make nothing happens, right? You have to realize the gain. So if you haven't realized the gain, then it's not a trade.
Not a complete trade, no.
Exactly. So it's in your dreams. You made money. Good, great. It's on paper. But the problem is with the whole fraud situation, right? You want to get a little bit more information on the UNH, and it may be down. It may play this way for at least 1 or 2 more quarters, right? So you may get more opportunity to add. So I have more thoughts that in my Substack article that I'll be writing. I think there's a better play than UNH in the medicals in the healthcare sector rather than going with just UNH.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if you're watching this now, obviously you're interested in finding that kind of thesis, etc., then maybe KAYE, you can release a tweet on your, pin a tweet to your X profile so people can see your Substack. Go straight there. So it'd be good nice and easy for people to kind of click on. It's probably in your bio anyway. I'm not too sure, but
yeah, it is there. But I'll definitely put a tweet there as well. Yep.
Okay, maybe I should have said that then instead. But yeah, SMCI looking pretty good. I love the way you talked about it. I'm very passionate around it, and I think you're very happy around it as well. So.
Yeah, and I do think, by the way, this is also is a pure AI play as well, which doesn't get that much, I guess, screen time by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But this is a good play to have, at least for a long term.
Awesome. Right, what's next then, Kay?
This SHAUN, SOUN.
SoundHound, yeah.
You used to cover this, right?
I did, yeah. This is one of those stocks that I moaned about at the beginning of the year because I didn't make any money on it. Well, I did, but not as much as I could have made, because I think I traded it from hypothetically from about here to here, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. But then it made all of these grains up top. Anyway, we won't get into that because that's a bit too depressing. What we've got here is we've got it kind of playing within a zone. So I've got 9.15 and 13 here, already drawn from probably a previous live stream that we've done in previous weeks. But what I do like is obviously the most recent push. It's gone up quite nicely in this week actually. But maybe we can kind of come back down to this level of $10. I know it's just over 10% drawdown, but I don't hate the entry there just because you've got all the moving averages, you've got plenty of volume here on the right side. And obviously previous resistance in the form of probably what looks like maybe a trend line, something like that, perhaps. Obviously very rough drawing. You could also draw another horizontal line. Let's cover that grey for now. So there's plenty of support underneath. I wouldn't be buying it here, although there is nice volume here. I probably wouldn't be buying it. It's just not part of my strategy to do that. So if we can see it come back down to that kind of $10 level, then I'll be very interested. And I'll got to write that down because I seem to be writing down a lot today. Anything you want to point out here for sound?
No,
Okay?
no, I think no particular input. Next is MU if you're done with it.
Micron, here we go.
Yeah, another one, another gap up. Very nice.
Another semiconductor space that's going.
I think semiconductor has really, it was in the dumps for a long time, and I think with the recent rally, I think it has lifted all ships here across the board.
I like the break of the 200 and it's come back down and retested it and it's kind of making that move higher. What I would like it to see in this upcoming week is you can very clearly see that there's a trend line here coming down from late February, or no, sorry, late January. Peak, and obviously we're hitting that zone now. If we can break out of that, then it should be a fairly simple trade on paper from here to 109. So yeah, it's easier said than done, of course, but that is the trade that I'd be looking at. It's 11%, so it's not too bad.
And the earning was on 320, so there is no additional catalyst, I'm assuming.
The only thing I would say, obviously, taking that is quite high risk. I mean, you could set a stop loss just below the recent low, which is fine. But if we were to get a bit of drawdown, which is highly likely as well, you do obviously have the gap fill and the two moving averages coming down below it, which is another point to potentially start a position as well, from my perspective at least.
So as an option seller, right?
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I would, if I'm an option seller, I'll sell a 85 put for a month out, or maybe 2 months, maybe 20th June. That I'll target that. Yeah, and I'll get about 122, 131, maybe $130, 1.3 basically on the contract. And that covers me for any downside protection, right? For that gap fill. So that is one idea that if I'm playing, if I want to build on my MU position, that's how I'll do it.
I like that. I think the background.
If it goes up, no problem. I just collect my premium. If not, then I hedge I basically cover that gap. So.
And I think that's why viewers find this so valuable when we do it every week. We find the options, details, and thoughts behind that side of things. Obviously, the shares and that kind of thing from my side as well. So if you are enjoying it, obviously do stick a like on it. And we've got a comment here actually from FinXL, which is soon has got the first positive net income in Q1 2025. Great earnings report for soon. So I imagine that was last week. Which, if that's the case, which it probably is, then that is absolutely fantastic because they're not the biggest company and there is potential for that company to definitely grow. I know there was rumors that it was linking with NVIDIA, but I'm not too sure if they were squashed down or not. I had to do a bit more research into that. What's the next up then, Kay?
We do have TSLL. I think, isn't that a leverage?
It is. That's Tesla times 2.
Oh, I see. Should we cover Tesla instead of this one, or what do you want to cover?
Yeah, let's do that. Because whatever we say about Tesla, just times it by 2.
Yeah.
Tesla at the moment, I'm kind of leaving it to do whatever it wants to do because at the moment it's you got all the headlines coming out almost daily for Tesla, and the most recent earnings report was nothing but underwhelming. But yet the stock is up like 40% since that earnings report, which is ridiculous. So at the moment, it's kind of letting it to breathe, see where it kind of goes. But at the moment, it's doing really, really well. I keep saying that. What are your thoughts on Tesla at the moment?
I think it will probably continue to have the bull run in anticipation of the robotaxi event. Now, what it's going to do after the fact, most likely buy the rumor, sell the news situation. Because if it's underwhelming, and as I have said it multiple times on this stream, throughout my videos as well, they have to nail that execution, right? If the bears find even a little bit downside, they will basically pull the stock down. But as of right now, I'm pretty sure most people should already have a position. They should just enjoy the momentum to the upside. How far it will go, we don't know. People are predicting all sorts of numbers. I think just let it run.
Yeah, I mean, Barber did something similar. It drew down for many, many months. And it kind of made a move higher and obviously blasted above the moving averages. And then it kind of tailed out nicely and let the moving averages catch up. And that's when I'll kind of pay more attention when the moving averages kind of catch back up. Obviously, the golden cross will resurface as well. So that's an interesting indicator for potential bull movement. But yeah, I mean, with that news report coming up with Robotaxi in June, you said June?
Yeah, they haven't announced the date yet,
Oh,
but
right.
it's supposed to be in June sometime. So I think we will see a push to the upside, at least to the day off, and probably we might see a lot of volatility on the day when it's announced.
Oh, yeah.
It's most likely going to be after the market close. They will probably launch it. There is some kind of an event. And then listen, once they are actually launch it, it's game time. From there onward, it becomes something that they need to report revenues on, and that's it.
Yeah. So I hope that helps Tesla now. I hope I'm saying that right as well. I think I am. We'll move on to the next one, which I think is Google. So
Google, yeah.
we had to rattle through these last few because it is almost up to kind of the 1 hour mark. And I'm getting a little bit hungry. So
We cannot let you be hungry.
no, we can't do that. That would be very, very bad. This one's actually not looking too bad. I like Google for the future, of course. I mean, we did have a bit of a news event a couple of weeks ago with this large red candle.
I think that is a really nothing burger because Apple had already said they are going to use ChatGPT for many use cases. So continue.
And you can see that reflected in the price action. So it's come straight back up again. I took advantage of the dip down here as well. I'm not too sure exactly where, but you kind of add to your long positions if you think, oh, actually, this is what kind of news is this? This isn't very concrete at all. But what I really want to see this week coming up is the break of this 200 moving average. Very, very simple. Lots of volume here on the right side. So maybe if we break through that, then we can start plugging away back to $200, which is not quite the gap fill, but it's on the way, and it's a very psychological number, of course. But yeah, looking good for Google, I think.
Yeah, but if you see a rejection from 200, keep adding to your long-term position, right?
Yeah, you've got that trend line, which I've loosely drawn. I know it got broken already technically down here, but I've left it in there for now. But yeah, if we do get a rejection of the 200, like Kay said, then that will most likely break as well. So yeah, we'll see where it goes in the next couple of weeks.
So there are a couple of tickers like LITM. I'm not sure what that is.
Must be lithium, right? Oh no, Snow Lake Resources. It's also lithium in the UK, but I think it probably means Snow Lake Resources. Not looking good. $3.70. Turn of the year, it was trading around $22.
Oh wow! I think you should stay away from the stock.
Yeah, so it's looking quite negative. I wonder what the volume is like. Let's just get that up on the screen. It's almost non-existent. Got one big bar here and then nothing afterwards. Not something we trade. If anything, continue going lower is what I would say. But again, that's not advice. It's just a mere speculation of what we're looking at.
Next is MRK. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. MRK, yeah. So this one was actually quickly followed up by.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is the healthcare. Okay, got
it. This one was quickly followed up by a negative comment by FinXL, which is market trash. It is in a downtrend from June 2024.
So if you notice, right, it's AMD had an exact pattern, right? But healthcare in general is in a complete downtrend, and there are no catalysts as of this point in time. And with UNH fraud also, adding fuel to fire. So I think we'll probably continue to see this downtrend. But if you have a Merck position, with all fairness, it's below its 200-day and 300-day moving averages. So
yeah, healthcare in general not getting the.
It's not getting
the green.
Yeah. So exactly. So right now you are basically trading around the 2022 price point. Crazy.
Yes, this is actually a weekly chart now on the screen. Obviously, plenty of volume here as you'd expect with all the price action on the screen. But in that zone of 70 to 84, which is a $14 range, yeah, interesting to see for the longer term. If you like these types of stocks, then it could be something to look into, of course. But that's all I have to offer, really.
All right, let's cover the last stock, which is probably most people like, is Robinhood.
Robinhood, yes, it's going very well. It's very choppy at the moment, I must admit. I don't trade it a lot. but when I do, it normally goes well. So what I would like to see here is basically a return back down to kind of 20 moving average, ideally. If not, maybe the green line as well, but I think I said that last week, which is why it's still there, which obviously we didn't get last week as it moved a lot higher. It's just marching higher. Unfortunately, I don't have this in my long-term position. I just traded it, and I kind of wish I did. But is it too late to get into it? For me at the moment, yes, but just because of where the moving averages are, just because the fact it's kind of a bit of no man's land at the moment, it's not really hitting any supports or resistance. But any thoughts on Robinhood? Are you looking at this one?
No, it's almost at the all-time highs, and especially I don't tend to buy stocks when the market is in super greed and when it's all-time highs.
There you go. We heard it here first. We've got a comment here from Finexel again. Health service industry seems like bad, but check out Oscar. Got good public reaction for it. Yes, Oscar is one of those names that's getting a lot of following at the moment on FinTwit. I still yet to kind of dive into it fully, but I kind of loosely looked at their sheets and the CEO and all that kind of stuff, and it's not too bad. Yeah, so maybe I should do a little bit more digging into that. Healthcare seems to be a bit of a subject for today, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think UNH really stirred a lot of comments and interest from a lot of folks. But we have been getting some of the folks have been asking about healthcare for a while. So that, to be fair, right? I mean, we have had a lot of healthcare requests from a while now.
Yeah, and that concludes that one then with the healthcare kind of main focus today. Obviously, we did touch on lots of little names as well. There's a few more kind of penny stocks coming in this week, which is interesting to see, and it kind of makes sense as well. We spoke about it earlier with kind of extreme greed, or I think we're in greed at the moment, but almost in extreme greed.
Almost extreme greed.
Yeah, and lots of short interest stocks as well popping up again, which is always exciting for the viewer. But just be careful if you are trading these names, because they can be very, very volatile. More often than not, they are super volatile. So just be careful when you're trading them, and obviously manage that risk. Otherwise, you'll lose your accounts, and you don't want to do that because you won't be trading again. But yeah, obviously. But just to conclude then, obviously, thank you very much for Wolf as well for Let's Use the platform. We really, really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you, of course. And that's kind of it from me. Do you want to close out the stream?
I think you covered pretty much. All I'll say is next week is going to be a pretty volatile week again, just like the previous week. And the following week will be the same as well. So just get used to trading in a volatile environment. Coming to all-time highs, I think it's important to not lose sight of the good quality companies. Whenever they're down to 200 to 300 moving averages from a long-term standpoint, always end up adding them, right? You will not regret it.
There's no shame in adding to your winners. Just be careful when you add to your winners, because sometimes if you look at the charts, it doesn't always make sense. With that, obviously, we'll be back same time next week, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sundays. Follow us, of course, Sean Trade _ and InvestKAYE, and of course, Wolf as well, who's just a machine in this industry, which we really, really appreciate. And obviously, for the 4,000 viewers that tuned in today. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.